listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello and welcome. I'm Laura Greco and you're listening to SuperPower Mommas. And today I am so excited to have our guest, Hession, with us. She is an energetic healer and a certified medical, intuitive, and body code practitioner. And our topic is going to be personal development ideas for healing anxiety. She has studied alternative forms of transformation healing for over 30 years and the director of a large alternative healthcare center in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I guess that is. And she holds a BA in psychology from Harvard University. She is a mother of two powerful daughters who are both energy healers as well, and her work with her in her healing practice called Body. Oh, I didn't ask you. How do you say that? Body
Sapience.
Sapience. Yeah. Throughout her career.
Which means wisdom. That's what sapience.
Wisdom. Oh, beautiful.
Your body. So Body Sapience.
Body Sapience. Throughout her career, and has educated and mentored thousands of people in energy healing techniques. Her private practice, she has worked with individuals from across the globe with a focus on working with mothers to help them resolve the most difficult health issues for themselves and their families. In addition to individual healing sessions, she offers Calm Mom, a 5-week group healing and coaching program for mothers dealing with severe anxiety. And I am so excited to have you here with us, Anne. So welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to address this topic of personal development ideas that really create healing from anxiety. But before we dive really into this deeply, I would like to ask you, as we do with all our guests, what is your superpower or your super mama power, as we sometimes call it?
I think I have several, but I think the one that really comes to mind.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is listening.
Listening.
You know, I was blessed to have a mother who really drummed into me at a young age that you always need to listen and consider the other person's point of view, right? Like I got that at such a young age. And part of having that be such a part of how I am in the world, how I operate, because that started probably when I was like 3, you know, is really getting that everybody's point of view is valid as a point of view, right?
Yeah.
And that nobody's point of view is actually the truth. They're all just points of view, right?
Yeah, that too.
And that's such a huge thing that I think a lot of people never completely get. So, and then the other piece I would say that's about why I say listening is because I am, you know, a medical intuitive, and that's kind of about listening too. And that's about actually listening to your own intuition. And listening and hearing, you know, like when I say I'm a medical intuitive, sometimes I think when people hear that, if they're even familiar with the phrase, you know, they imagine that I look at you and I see lights and bells or things, you know, and I don't. It's not, It's way more subtle than that for me. It'll literally just be like a thought. And it took many years for me to realize that those thoughts had value. Those little thoughts actually based on something. And so there's a real power in learning to listen to yourself and actually trust your gut and trust your intuition. That's I truly don't think I'm any more intuitive than anybody else. I think I just have learned to trust it more.
Yeah. Well, I believe that we're all divine creations, right? And therefore we all have the ability to have intuition or to tap into our intuition. It's a matter of practice, right?
Yeah.
And knowing
learning to trust it. Yeah.
Yes. And knowing how it's heard. Like you're not seeing bells and whistles and lights, right? But you have
that'd be so cool.
It would be cool. It'd be a little more affirmation, right?
Well, it is. And that's the thing about learning to trust your intuition, why we doubt, right? Is because then you say, sometimes I'm working with someone and I'll intuit something about what's really going on, like underneath the surface that's causing the issue. And sometimes what I'm intuiting, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I don't even want to say it. They're gonna, but
Right.
then I just say it. And it's funny. It's always the times when I'm really doubting it, that the person I'm with, the client I'm working with goes, oh yeah.
It's like the universe sense of humor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, thanks for the affirmation of that, because I was doubting.
Yes. But it's a wonderful skill to develop for all of us as moms, as people working with other people. And it's amazing. I love when, so I do ideas of soul language, which is a way to get to know your soul being, why you're here, and so forth. And what I love is when a mom maybe isn't connecting necessarily with what I'm saying. However, when I ask her to describe her mission, she can do it in her own words and say exactly what,
Right.
what is coming up intuitively. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And it's so affirming for them too.
Yes.
So that you were getting that too.
Yes. And the very neat thing is when they're able to describe it in their own words and really feel like it's an affirmation of them. It gives them an opportunity then to really live that and own it, and feel comfortable within their own skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite things is helping people get contacted with their, I would call it like their purpose, right? Like why they're really here.
Right.
Because that's all for, we all get to create that. We all get to say why we're here.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
To create that space for someone where they can like step into that and create it for themselves powerfully it's just awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is. So your listening skill, your ability to really tune in and intuitively listen, which is what I'm sensing that you were describing there. How has this superpower really assisted you with your daughters and with your work with other moms?
Well, I think it's about being very conscious, like being aware of listening as a thing that you're consciously doing, as opposed to something that's just happening, right? Like I think a lot of times we don't really examine how we're listening. We're just listening, right? And so we have all these filters that are in the way of how we listen, right? So everyone could probably think of at least one person in your life where maybe someone who kind of irritates you a little, right? Like think of somebody, right? If you stop and look, you probably could see that you have a filter for that person. And every time they speak, you're listening through that filter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not really hearing what they're saying in the moment. And so I think why and I would say maybe listening would be the superpower I would choose, even if I could choose anyone, is because it's so powerful to be conscious about your listening and to actually notice, oh, I have a filter here, and I could actually choose to drop that filter, right? I could actually choose a different filter instead of the filter that kind of I already know what this person's going to say, thing.
Right.
I can stop and consciously in the moment go, I'm going to choose to listen to this person I'm going to listen for their greatness.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen for how they could contribute to me. I'm going to listen for what they're committed to in the world.
Yeah.
Well, that is just a whole different experience when you do that, right? So that's what I do, whether I'm working with a client in the healing work or with my kids. And my kids are, 20 and 22 now. Or almost 20. She'll be 20 this month. So that's certainly very present there now because there's, 20 and 22 years worth of past.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's there, right? Where I'll start to be like, she's doing that good. And I can stop and choose and say, okay, but, that's actually not what's happening right now. That all that past stuff, right?
Yeah.
What's happening right now is just what's happening right now, and I'm going to listen for, what she's committed to.
Yes, yes, and it's very profound for the person who is speaking too. Yeah, because it actually, they often, we're filtering, but they're filtering in return. And when we break the energy, right? When we stop and break the pattern, suddenly everything changes, right?
It's so powerful. I mean, when you think about it, the times when you have truly felt heard, by someone. Yeah. And first of all, unfortunately, it's not that common for a lot of us.
Yes.
To really feel heard. But it's so powerful. I think it was actually like a meme going around Facebook not long ago, but it was one of those, I was like, yes, it basically said that people start, as soon as people feel heard, they start to heal.
Yes. Yes. I did see that.
The truth.
Mm-hmm.
So the truth.
Yeah. We have to take a break, Anne. So we're going to resume this conversation because we want to dive really deeply into the personal development ideas that are healing anxiety. So, and that's such a widespread thing. You're going to get into that, I know, in our next portion. But for now, how can people reach you? Where do you want them to go?
So, I want to invite people to, if you'd like to explore more about energy healing for anxiety and other things, I actually have some just, free resources for people. You can actually join. I have a Facebook group that's just for moms who are interested in this kind of stuff and wanting to deal with stuff. So I have a link that you can go to so you could join that group. Mm-hmm. It's called the Healthy Vibe Mama Tribe. So I'll spell out the link. So http:// Sapiens. So that's BODYSAPIENCE.com.pages. Sorry, it's a little long. So .pages.ontraport. So it's ONTRAPORT.net/HVMT.
Perfect. And these should be in the show notes for the listeners. If you want to pop on there and pick up that link, it'll be there. So let's take our break. And then when we come back, you're listening to SuperPower Mommas. I'm Laura Greco, and we're speaking with Anne Hession on the topic of personal development ideas for healing anxiety. We'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The SuperPower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the SuperPower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
Welcome back. I'm Laura Greco, your host at SuperPower Mommas, and you're listening to the topic of personal development ideas for healing anxiety. And Anne Hession is going to continue our conversation with us because this is a focus in her business, especially for moms. So I'd like to further this discussion from where we were, and I'll open it up by asking you about moms in general. Like, how important is her autonomy, her feeling of being an individual? How important is that to the reducing anxiety for herself, and how does that relate to her children?
Oh, so that's a big topic. So the thing that comes to mind, and it may sound like I'm talking about something a little different than what you were saying, but I think it's completely connected.
Yeah. Yes.
It's your sense of self and autonomy. It's actually about being present in the moment.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I would say that a lot of the work that I do is about helping people to just be here now in the moment. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because that's the only place that we have any power at all.
Mm-hmm.
We have no power in the past. We have no power in the future because they're not real, right? The only thing that's real is right now. And so when someone is really anxious and stressed out, right, especially when it's sort of out of proportion to what's going on, right?
Yes.
Then you're not present, right? You're actually, in a very real sense, stuck in the past, right in that moment.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And from an energy healing point of view, part of the reason why that's happening is because there's actually trapped emotional energy from the past that's stuck in your body, right?
Cool.
So just to explain how that works just briefly, when you feel an emotion, what happens is your body actually generates emotions. It's your physical body that generates emotion.
Okay.
And so your physical body has to process the emotion. And if your body doesn't fully process it at the time, then that emotional energy gets trapped and stuck in your body. And it stays there until you actually do something to clear it or finish processing it, which could be decades later. So it'll form into kind of a little ball of energy, and it'll be stuck somewhere in your body, and it'll be affecting the cells in that area of your body. You sort of training them to that emotion of grief or abandonment or whatever the emotion was. And it'll be affecting your experience of life. Remember, we were talking about filters before? So it's kind of like a filter, right?
Right.
If you've had multiple times in your life when you felt abandoned and you didn't process those, you're going to have multiple trapped energies of abandonment. And that going to make you more likely to feel abandoned sometime in the future, even when that's not really what's happening. You're going to feel like that's what's happening. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So when you actually clear those trapped emotional energies from someone's body, which is part of the healing work that I do, then there's that past piece is gone, so you can actually be present. And that's not the only way to help you be more present, but I wanted to kind of put that piece in, right? Because if you stop and think about it, when you're getting super stressed out, and especially when it's out of proportion to what's going on, right?
Yes.
You're like,
all of us.
Of course, you're on top of, you're like blaming yourself for reacting out of proportion. The reason you're reacting is out of proportion to what's going on is because you're not reacting to what's going on. You're reacting to something from the past, And by the way, anybody else who was reacting to that same thing from the past would also be overreacting to what's happening right now. Like, you know what I mean? You're not crazy,
right?
You're getting reactivated from stuff that happened a long time ago.
Right.
And the really interesting thing about that is if what's getting sort of triggered is stuff from when you were, let's say, 12. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now you're 42. But you're getting reactivated. Like, what's being driven up for you is stuff that happened that never got fully dealt with when you were 12. In that moment, even though you're really chronologically 42, in that moment you're 12.
Yeah. And
you only have like a 12-year-old's capacity to deal with it.
Right.
Which isn't nothing. It's more than a 4-year-old. But it's never. And when you can actually get that and be like, oh my gosh, I'm 12 right now.
Yeah.
12 right now. First of all, here's one thing that makes possible. You can have some compassion for yourself. Because you're 12, like a 12-year-old should not have to be dealing with whatever's going on, right? So you can actually have a little compassion for yourself, like, oh, all right. It's my 12-year-old who's trying to deal with this. Poor thing.
Right.
Give her a little hug. Like, it's okay, honey. You know, right? So that can be a powerful thing when you're upset and you feel like you're a little, out of proportion what's going on. Stop and check, like, what age does this feel like?
Yeah.
15 or I'm 8, whatever. It's not like a right answer, but just like, what does it kind of feel like? So that gives you some compassion for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Something that women, moms often aren't doing. So we're blaming ourselves for everything.
Right.
And then B, you can stop and go like, oh, but you know what? I am actually 35.
Right.
And I have, abilities and maturity and stuff that 12-year-old, doesn't have, that I just haven't been bringing to this situation. So I could actually choose to bring them now. Right? It's like a little like immediate grow up.
Yes.
That becomes possible. Yes. Just because you stopped and you got like, oh my gosh, I'm 12 right now. Right? So that's a really powerful thing that helps you to really be in the moment and, and bringing everything you've got.
Yes. Yes. And I can totally see how this speaks to the idea of autonomy, because we are locked into our child mind when we're quote unquote reacting to a situation from the standpoint of a 12-year-old. And so when we can bring it up to present day and present moment, now we have choices.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's what creates autonomy. Yeah.
And it gives you that, I call it the pause, the blessed, miraculous pause.
So do I, actually.
Right?
That's great.
Pause, and you can go, oh. Right? Whether it's, I'm 12, right? Right in this moment. Or I mean, I have seen grown adults stamp their feet like a 4-year-old. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so sometimes the hint of like what age you're stuck at right now is in your body, is in your physicality. And you stop and you look and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Or there's pain there or some other thing. Yeah.
So so in that pause that comes from, that's one of the ways to get that pause, you have some freedom and power that you just didn't have without the pause.
Yes. I totally agree. So now let's take this to, so the mom is working this through, right? And she's had the opportunity now to see things from her from where she is now in the present moment. Let's carry this over to, because as you mentioned to me already, how 18% of the U.S. population are actually in anxiety and have anxiety disorders. So how can this?
Yeah, that's what they estimate. So, and just to be clear, so there's anxiety that's just like, let's call it small a anxiety, right? Normal human emotion, perfectly appropriate, a response to some situations. It can even be useful because anxiety, triggers parts of your nervous system that has you pay attention to things, right? So it's not like anxiety is bad in and of itself. Right? Mm-hmm. Normal human emotion. And then there's, let's say, capital A anxiety, which is either diagnosed or could be diagnosed as an anxiety disorder. And that part of what's about that is it's out of proportion to the situation. And it's interfering with your ability to, live your life on a daily basis. And then a third thing that, is kind of used as part of it is sometimes that it's not necessarily all the time, but often that it's age inappropriate. So that is one of the other things that they're looking for. Someone who's, I'm not a psychiatrist, right? But someone who's looking at anxiety disorders. And the fact that 18% of the US population, either has or, will at some time in their life, that's so many millions of people. It's an epidemic.
Yeah. And the thing is that might sound like, 18%, but honestly, that's probably not a true number.
It's probably
because there's a lot of people that don't end up going for any professional help over it.
Absolutely. And in my experience, I think it's a real epidemic among kids. Maybe I'm wrong, but certainly there were kids when I was growing up who were dealing with a lot of stress. I mean, I had some stress or whatever, but it just doesn't seem, not like this. I think that kids are truly, truly dealing with stuff that we just weren't dealing with when we were growing up. It's so overwhelming, the pace of the world now.
Yeah. Would you like to give an example for our listeners? Because I think that I can see, I live in an area right now that I moved into where I can see there's a lot of performance anxiety and, what am I providing for my child that is so necessary for, and there's an influence of not just what you read and see, but what you're seeing in your peers. So if you want to expand on that, that would be great.
Well, I mean, I've so many, both actually one of my daughters and quite a few other kids of people that I know, kids of clients, friends of my kids have the whole college thing have literally like either dropped out partway through their first year, which I'm not saying that never happened before, but it's like happening a lot, right? And sometimes they're able to go back and stuff, but they're so overwhelmed by the experience. My own daughter had a horrendous first year of college. She was calling home crying sometimes several times a week. I mean, it was so hard. It was so hard to for all of us, right? And she ended up doing a year and a half at that school, then taking some time off, doing a year at another school. And now she's actually back at the original school. I'm really proud of her. And she really took it on. We did a lot of energy healing work.
Mm-hmm.
And she just, she really says she's doing great now. And she's actually back at the original school and is going to finish and graduate from there. But I think it's just very common that kids are going out into the world and everybody's talking, is it the parenting? Is it this? They're so entitled. There's all this, is it social media, this, that, and the other? I don't know. It's not one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that one thing of like not being able to deal with that transition to college in a powerful way seems huge. I'm hearing it from so many parents.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, there've always been issues with drugs and stuff, but when you combine, I think, the higher level of anxiety that kids are under now with the availability of, the opioids and all that stuff, you're just seeing a lot of really tragic situations where it gets absolutely out of control.
Right. And that's where I think that it speaks to the work that we're doing as a community in this profession, is to providing options, questions, opportunity to see things in a new way. Does it have to be this way, or are there other solutions? Sometimes, like with college, sometimes children need, the space to figure things out before they pursue, what they're doing.
Absolutely.
But it's all part of the experience of learning and being okay with like having a struggle. And then getting
and kids they need to find their own way. And as parents, we need to listen and actually get their world, still challenge them, right? Not just be like, oh, hey, honey, you don't have to go out and have a life, nope, that's not gonna work. But support them, and it really comes back to the listening, right?
Yes.
And to truly listen and listen for the greatness that's possible.
Yeah, I say to the young moms I talk with in my work, I say, what your children need most from you, aside from whatever you might read, the biggest thing they need is they need you to really see them, to really hear them, and to let them know that they are valued and loved. If you've done that, you've done mountains worth of work.
Absolutely. It's really, that's what they need more than anything else. And then consistency in that.
Yeah. Which is not an easy thing because we're busy with our own stuff.
We are. We
and be okay. People. Be okay with that too, and the process of moving through it, and also teaching our children or modeling for our children how we move through it helps them to see how that works. I'm sure that happened with you and your daughters.
Absolutely. And that's partly why they've gotten interested in doing. They now, both do some of the healing work that I do. They've gotten interested in now doing that and expanding that, which is very exciting because not just because it's a cool thing for them to do. It's a cool way for them to start to earn a living, helping people, but also because they now have those tools for themselves.
Yeah.
But as they deal with life, they have the ability to kind of go in and see underneath in the subconscious, like underneath the surface, what's really going on here, and to address that.
Be a little investigator.
Yeah, I call it insider healing because we're kind of getting the real underlying causes of what's going on, whether it's anxiety or a physical issue or anything.
And that's how we started out as children. We were very inquisitive, very curious, very asking questions all the time, and that sort of got culturally that gets pushed to the wayside, and so by uniformity. And so the opportunity to go back to that creative, curious way of living and experiencing life can really open doors we had no idea were there before that. So we're getting close to, do you believe it? We're already almost at our time, but I want to ask you, you've shared some really great things, but I want to ask you, is there something in our discussion today or that you would like the listeners to take away, or a tool that you'd like to share that you feel would be really helpful?
Sure. I'd love to share, actually, for moms who are dealing with, I don't know any mom who's not dealing with stress. So let's just put that out there. So you're dealing with stress at all, but especially if you really are, struggling with some anxiety. there's one really simple tool, and this actually, before I get into the specific tool, a few times a year I do a free 5-day stress detox for moms on Facebook. And so if you go to the link that I gave before to join the Facebook group, you'll get notified the next time there's. It's totally free, 5 days of moms de-stressing. It's awesome stuff. So, but one of the things that I talk about in that is just the power of movement. And so when you are starting to lose it, right, one of the most powerful things you can do is simply to move your body, stand up, do a jumping jack, spin around like Wonder Woman, drum on something, whatever, just movement, because your body and your inner state are totally connected, and it's a two-way street between the two of them, right? So moving your body is like a back door into your physical, your internal emotional state, right? So it's one of those things that can give you that blessed pause to be able to space, is simply to move. And I know it sounds too simple to work, but I'm telling you, it works. It gives you that, and inside of that, you have some freedom to make choices and do things a little differently that you don't have without the pause.
Yep, I totally support that, because movement also breaks that energy, right? We're in a cycle of something. We break the energy by making a movement.
Exactly.
Which is beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing that. So how about you share your links that you would like us to know about again before we complete our call today?
Sure. So my website is bodysapience.com. And so that's BODYSAPIENCE.com. And that means sapience means wisdom. So this is about accessing the wisdom of your body for healing. And to join that free Facebook group, and we do a weekly free group energy healing call on the Facebook group. So you can come and you can actually get healing for free just by being a part of the group, as well as all kinds of great tips. Is the bodysapience.com.pages.ontraport, ONTRAPORT.net, and then /HVMT.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for joining us and discussing personal development ideas for healing anxiety. And thank you, listeners, for being here. It's really been a wonderful discussion, Anne, and something that, sometimes we just have to call it out rather than try to hide the anxiety that we are coping with on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And when we call it out, it doesn't become so big after all. So, and listeners, thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to say that I love that you're here. Thank you for being here. You're beautiful. You're doing a really tremendous job when you're raising children. And I admonish you to honor who you are and where you are, and to discover your superpowers and go out and be you. That's what your children really need to see most. So thank you for listening. Until next time.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.